Good morning. As always, happy Friday. Happy first Friday. All right. For those of you that I don't know, Mike Langelier from TechPoint. Joshua Hall here in the back. You'll be seeing him capturing some content that will then be turned into a story at the end of this. And there will be some materials as well that you'll be able to, that we'll probably reference in the conversation, but will be part of that story so that you can access it later on. Annie Grinstead here in the back as well, our events manager. Many of you probably communicated with her. And Ellen, I know, is back here too. Ellen Funky. They're all from the TechPoint team. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, as always, to our hosts, Barnes and Thornburg, have very graciously offered this space, breakfast, and have been partners and collaborators in this for a long time. So thank you guys for making that possible, Deb and David and Brian and all of you. And welcome to those that are joining us remotely as well. Many of you know, in addition to this room, we have remote locations that tune in for this event as well, specifically South Bend, Minneapolis, Columbus. We've also got folks from the Chamber of Commerce and SBDC in Evansville, Mid-America Science Park in Scottsburg, Purdue Technology Center in Merrillville joining us as well. So welcome to all of you. And then thank you as well to Lightbound for helping to make this event possible. And for your support of this as well. So now I'm going to turn it over to David Hooper. He's a partner here at Barnes & Thornburg in Corporate Securities, corporate department here. David?
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everyone, for being here this morning. We have an exciting program and an exciting panel here with a lot of experience in the Small Business Innovation Research Program, which is, as many of you know, a really important program for entrepreneurs and fundraising ability to get your business startup going. And we have a wealth of experience here on the panel this morning, which is exactly what we want for programs like this. And I'm going to get some brief introductions here so we can get right to the content, and I'll just go on down the line here. Briefly, myself, I'm a partner in the corporate department, focusing primarily in securities and mergers and acquisitions. I do a lot of work with businesses and startups in fundraising and capital raising on all levels, from young companies all the way up to public companies. So this is of particular interest to me, and I know it will be to you as well. First to my left is Ryan Metzing. He's the project director for the Aerospace and Defense Initiative at Conexus, Indiana. If you don't know about Conexus, it is the state's advanced manufacturing and logistics initiative. And it's dedicated to making Indiana a global leader in high-growth, high-tech industries. So we welcome Ryan to the program this morning. To his left is Matthew Tancredi. Matthew is a co-founder and the chief technology officer of Sensorhound Innovations, which is a technology startup based at Purdue. In 2014, Sensorhound was awarded a $150,000 Phase 1 SBIR grant from the National Science Foundation, so he can provide some particular insight to our topic today. And he holds a master's in electrical and computer engineering from Purdue and is currently pursuing his PhD. So thank you, Matthew, for being here today. Rich Boling, to his left, is Vice President for Corporate Advancement at Techshot, Inc., a technology company based in Greenville, and he leads the marketing, public relations, and government relations initiatives for the company and is a key member of its business development team. Rich is a graduate of Indiana University Southeast, and we're happy to have Rich here today. Polina Feldman is a spin-up associate and recently joined Indiana University Research and Technology Corporation and the spin-up program to facilitate university commercialization efforts. In her role as associate, Dr. Feldman supports company operations, business development, and fundraising efforts, and she manages fundraising strategies and provides consultation on small business grant applications and early business competitions. So, pleasure to have Dr. Feldman with us today. And finally, Kris Parmelee is the founder and president of Parmelee Consulting. Kris is responsible for formulating and delivering project management strategies tailored to meet the needs of small business clients in central Indiana. Kris founded the company in 2000 and has a bachelor's degree from IU's School of Public and Environmental Affairs. So in the past 8 years, her consultancy has focused solely on the SBIR program, working with the state of Indiana, Indiana and Purdue universities, along with a number of other private market players. So a wealth of experience here on the panel, and with that, again, I thank you for being here this morning. Enjoy yourself, and I'll hand it over to Ryan.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. I understand this is a talk show type format, so that's why we have a panelist group up here. I don't know what talk show it is. I think it's The View, maybe. But I just want you to know I take Casual Friday very seriously, so thank you very much, Barnes & Thornburg and TechPoint, for this Friday morning event where we get to dress up. So we're going to get in and we're going to talk about the SBIR program. And I will start off, I think maybe what we'll do is go down the line. We heard a little bit about what all of our panelists do, but it might be important to talk about how the SBIR and STTR programs intersect with what they do. And I can start with that. I'm the director of the Indiana Aerospace and Defense Council, and my job at Connexus Indiana is to work with aerospace and defense employers across the state to identify opportunities for growth of the sector. And one of the opportunities that companies on my council have identified over and over and over is this federal program called Small Business Innovation Research, and the opportunities that it presents to help companies become more innovative and potentially commercialize new technologies. And the state of Indiana used to have a program that would provide matching funds to companies who received SBIR awards. And at the time that my initiative began in 2011, the state was no longer doing that program. And so we sort of took it upon ourselves to force the issue, and we wrote a white paper and presented it to the state and said, you know, we think this is something, if the state wants to know how the aerospace and defense sector can be supported and what an opportunity is for growth, this is kind of a low-hanging fruit initiative, and we think the state ought to have an SBIR program back up and running. And we'll probably hear about that today, later this morning, but the state has now relaunched that program, and we're happy to see that. But that is how my work has intersected with the SBIR program, and I would say that's why I'm here today, but probably just because somebody was really desperate or a poor judge of character in letting me be the moderator. But let's move on to Matt and hear a little bit about how the SBIR program intersects with what you do at Sensorhound.
So our company comes out of Purdue University. We were founded by 2 PhD students and a professor, and what we're developing is really research that came out of Purdue, and our first source of funding was a Phase 1 SBIR award, and really that was our only source of funding for the first 6 months. So it was really pivotal for us to getting started. We really wouldn't have been able to get started without it, and that's why it's very important to us.
Well, at Techshot, we've been around 25 years now, and as really an engineering company, I think there are about 30 folks there now, and 97% of them are all engineers, mechanical, electrical, software, every flavor. And we have 4 verticals that we serve, that we develop technologies for: aerospace, defense, medical devices, and consumer products. And those verticals are a mixture of customers that come to us and say, I'm not an engineer, I'm an entrepreneur, and I need to develop X, and they want to hire us to do that. Or we create the IP and spin it out into our own companies. We have a couple spin-off companies. Or we use the SBIR program to sell solutions directly to the government. And I think we've had somewhere north of 100 SBIRs so far. And how we typically use that is just to bring in new technology into the company. We go and meet with our longtime customers at NASA who say that they need a device, XY device, and they typically rely on the SBIR program to get us started and to de-risk the development of that project to raise the technology readiness level of that project through the SBIR program, and then it usually transitions into some sort of more standard contracting vehicle. But we infuse our company's portfolio with SBIR technology, and we sharpen our saw for non-SBIR related projects through the program.
I'm going to, if we don't mind, go to Kris and then to Polina. And Kris, can you include in your comments, for those in the audience who might not have any familiarity with the SBIR program, just exactly what it is, beyond just, we know it's small business innovation research, but talk a little bit about the fact that there are 11 federal agencies involved. Can you?
Absolutely. Sure. So what my role in the program is essentially sort of my elevator spiel is I help individuals navigate the SBIR STTR program, which is designed to encourage the development of technology in the small business sector. So the way one of the 11 federal agencies, the way you get to become a federal agency, it's based on the agency's extramural research budget. And so if they're investing a certain amount of money in other places, the government decided that, hey, what about the small business sector? We really need to throw some bones over there. And so this program is designed to encourage that development in small business. The other thing that came out of this is before the program was started, it was very difficult to do business with the federal government if you're a small business. Now it still is, but one of the big points was the issue of IP. And so SBIR allows the small business to maintain the IP even though it's developed with federal dollars. Anything else you want me to cover about? Just real quick, it's a 3-phase process, and for all general purposes, you need to go phase 1, 2, 3. Phase 1 is feasibility, phase 2 is prototype, and then phase 3 is the commercialization aspect.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Polina?
Yeah, so within Indiana University, the Research Technology Corporation, which manages all the IP coming out of the university, the spin-up program pairs with faculty to start some startup companies, and within that, we manage, we try to figure out which companies, which technology that the faculty is working with would be a good fit for the SBIR program. So the program itself is for everyone, but depending on the stage where the faculty is at and where they want to go with their technology, we decide whether or not they'd be fit for a startup. And so once we form the company, our first aspect is to submit a small business grant, and that can be through the SBIR or the STTR, which we'll probably talk about later. And so once we do that, we work with the faculty and leverage their skills as grant writers to start and submit the program. So within our startup portfolio, we have 22 companies that we formed. 15 of them have gone through the funding cycle. And so out of the 15, 40% have been funded. So that kind of shows us how the university faculty have the ability to write grants and translate the research that they do in the laboratory into a commercializable product for small business grants.
Can we talk a little bit about, we've said SBIR contracts and SBIR grants a little bit here, the difference between grants and contracts, and kind of what these awards look like from a phase 1 to a phase 2, timelines, investments, and all of the above. Rich or
I think, Kris, you had a great difference, an explanation between the contracts and grants.
Sure. So first I just want to recognize the work that IU's doing. A 40% approval rate is outstanding. The normal approval rate in the program is about 12%. So 40% is incredible. So some agencies are contracting agencies, some agencies are granting agencies, some agencies are both, and then some agencies are one but act like another. Contracting agencies are typically somebody like the Department of Defense that is working with a large prime, and that prime has a problem they need to solve, but it's not worth their time or money to invest in solving that problem, so they turn to the small business sector. And the DoD says to the small business, hey, you know, we've got a plane that needs a widget that's 4x4x4 and it has to do X, Y, and Z. And then it's up to the small business to decide how you get to that point, but they let you know the outcome. A grant, on the other hand, is somebody like NIH who says, hey, we're totally interested in whatever you got going on related to public health. Just let us know. In fact, they publish about 150-page topic book every year, and if you can't find a topic in that, they still want to see what you're working on. So that's kind of the difference between a grant and a contract.
Let's talk a little bit about what types of topics exist in these programs. You know, the Department of Defense is the largest federal agency participating in the program, but we're not always looking at defense products, right? We're talking biomedical, software, right?
Yeah, we've got an Army project related to stem cells. So we've got a device that improves the ability to collect stem cells from your own fat tissue, from adipose tissue. And we were partnered with, I think initially, University of Pittsburgh. They have a center there that the Army works with, and they're literally treating soldiers with massive tissue injuries with that soldier's own fat tissue. And our device just improves the yield whenever they're trying to collect these stem cells. So that, yeah, and I think I've heard that the largest researcher for breast cancer research is the U.S. Air Force.
Army.
Is it the Army?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Matt?
One thing is we work with the National Science Foundation, and so they're a little different than the other agencies in that they don't have very specific solicitations. So again, going back to the difference between the grants and the specific contracts, National Science Foundation is very wide open. They have very general topic areas, and they allow the proposals to come in with their own technology. So that is a good fit for a lot of people who are coming from universities who already have some technology and they want to try to commercialize this technology.
Polina, in the work that you do at IU, what are the topic areas that you're typically working in?
So primarily, we've worked a lot with the National Institute of Health, the NIH, and within that agency, they usually have a broad solicitation. It's very general. So it's more like what the researcher is doing or the company is doing. So it's not necessarily specific. There are specific solicitations, but that it's more likely you submit under the general. It's called the omnibus, and you submit to the NIH. But we've had one or two specific solicitations that our companies have submitted under.
So would somebody use the SBIR program because they have an idea and they're looking for funding, or would they use the program to find an idea?
Both.
Or both?
Depends on which way you want to go in, either way.
Matt, I think you probably fall into the category of having an idea, and I sort of touched on this earlier, but talk about the challenges of being a startup company with an idea, and considering what all your funding options are and the challenges that exist with using SBIR as your funding mechanism.
Right, so we've actually applied to a few different SBIRs. The first were rejected. The first we applied to DoD areas, for example, DARPA and Army, and as we said, they're looking for very specific technology. You know, DARPA was asking for very specific cyber-physical security system. The Army was looking for something that they can use when they're deploying wireless sensors out in the field. So they're asking very, very specific things, and we can try to twist the technology we've developed as researchers into what they're asking for. But really, when we're entrepreneurs, we're starting a company, we want to start with the technology and where we think it's going. And so when we finally came around to applying for the National Science Foundation, SBIR, that really allowed us to tell the story the way we wanted to tell it, and to come up with our commercialization plan, how it's going to be commercialized. And so that's where we had our most success.
So talk a little bit about the commercialization plan. When you enter this world, the federal government is going to require a commercialization plan or strategy. How difficult is that process, and are there resources that exist for a company to figure out what that path looks like?
So this is another difference with the NSF. Because they're not asking for a specific technology, they're not trying to acquire something that they're going to use like the DoD is. The NSF its only goal is to turn innovation into commercial products, to bridge that gap between the funding that they're funding to universities and to getting that turned into actual companies and commercial products. And so because of that, they really apply a big emphasis on commercialization. All throughout the program, they're really pushing you. They know the technology is solid because of where you come from, but they're really pushing you to look at the commercialization aspect. And so they have many programs. For example, they have a boot camp program where they go out, force you to talk to 30 stakeholders being customers, users, potential users of the products, influencers, purchasers, so on. You have to talk to 30 stakeholders, come up with hypotheses of what the market thinks about your product, and then actually test those with first-hand sources. So, they really emphasize this aspect, and that really helps. I think the company really helps.
Any other thoughts on that,
I just
Kris?
wanted to say, there used to be the longtime director of the Department of Transportation's SBIR program always used to talk about the fact that at its core, SBIR and STTR is an economic development program. And so the goal is always to commercialize the technology. Now, commercial success can mean a lot of different things. It can mean you sell your company. It can mean you license the technology. But somehow an end result is the goal of the program. It's not just science for the sake of science.
Go ahead, Rich.
Well, for commercialization to that agency, it means different things too.
Right.
We work a lot with NASA. So yes, they do want you all to see the value of the space program and see something on a store shelf or something that you find valuable in your everyday life that came from NASA. And so one bit of technology we developed for a shuttle mission way back when John Glenn went back into space in 1998, I think it was, has turned into this benchtop laboratory device that's used in diabetes therapeutics now. But then also we have commercialization projects with NASA where we build one product, but it's considered commercialized because they are the user of that. The very next SpaceX Dragon cargo ship that goes to the space station, it's supposed to launch in about 2 weeks, will carry one such product from Techshot in that. And it started life as an SBIR phase 1 years ago. And it's an X-ray machine for the International Space Station. And it eventually became a phase 3 SBIR.
Can you talk about what the technology is and kind of its evolution through the program?
Right. So it was a phase 1, and it started out, it's morphed a bit, but it started out as a device for radiation research at Brookhaven National Lab, and eventually went through the process, phase 1, phase 2. And I think this is also one that we earned during the period of the matches, the phase 1 matches. And I think we felt at the time that the phase 1 matches were valuable to help us compete with other states and proposals from other states. So we won that award, continued and built a prototype and delivered it to Brookhaven for use by NASA at Brookhaven National Lab. And then later, whenever the agency decided that it needed to X-ray a lot of mice on the International Space Station, looking at issues related to muscle wasting and osteoporosis. We were a company that had some experience doing some of the subcomponents of what that X-ray machine might look like, and we were approached. It already had been competitively bid through the SBIR program, so it didn't need to be competitively bid in the phase 3. And we were just asked to take a look at developing this, which we did. And there were a couple of contracts combined, one from NASA, one from the Center for the Advancement of Science and Space, and which total about $3.9 million. And so that will launch in 2 weeks, fingers crossed.
What's the timeline of that from when you began?
Gosh, the phase 1 was probably 8 years ago, something like that. Phase 2 immediately after that, but then, luckily this technology didn't seem to have a short shelf life. X-ray, it's, gosh, I'm going to screw this up. Dual energy X-ray, somebody will know it. Densitometry, let's just say that's what it is.
Oh, sure.
And yeah. I'm not an engineer, so that technology was great for this application for mice, and so it's taken a while.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment with that whole timeline process. So in the beginning, a lot of these companies just have an idea. So the SBIR program gives those opportunities a chance. It's high risk to submit an SBIR or even start a company. So the SBIR program is a vehicle to kind of flesh out your idea, figure out what the business model is and how you commercialize this. And so a lot of the work that we do, we deal with therapeutics, which is very high risk, a long timeline for development, drugs and medical devices. So this gives us an opportunity to submit these grants and get third-party validation, because most of the grants all the grants that are submitted have multiple reviewers that kind of give you feedback and critiques and kind of help develop the idea. And so even though you have an idea in the beginning, the SBI program really kind of develops the whole commercialization effort that you have. And seeing the whole process of what you just described really is a great example of it.
Since we brought up a lot about the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, maybe we should talk more about the specific timeline of the different phases and the amount of the award of the different phases. So I can only really speak to NSF, where phase 1 is basically a 6-month award for around $150,000. After that, if you have completed your phase 1, only then can you apply to phase 2. Phase 2 is a much more significant award. It goes for 2 years for $750,000. And then phase 3 isn't actually a dollar award. It's more of an opportunity to work with NSF to commercialize your technology. Maybe Kris can comment more about some of the other agencies' timelines and awards.
Let's talk about that. Mike has one thing to say.
For any of you that are new here, I just wanted to clarify, you have note cards on your table, so if any of this begs a question that you'd like to ask to the panel, you can scratch it on the note card in front of you, raise it up, somebody from our team will grab it and bring it up here and give it to Ryan.
Thanks.
So phase 3 is very similar with most agencies, although some of the larger agencies often pool funds from other sources to help with that phase 3. Some of the larger agencies also have different programs that, like NIH has a phase 2 bridge fund, which helps you kind of bridge that gap. So it depends on the agency. Also, $150,000 is the floor for a phase 1. Most agencies abide by that as also being their ceiling. They always talk about floors and ceilings in federal funding. Some agencies like NIH, though, have the opportunity and the ability to raise that dollar amount. In fact, Bill that's here just told me he just got a $1.75 million phase 2, $1.5 million phase 2. So even though they say phase 2 is $750,000, NIH recognizes that kind of research is very expensive. Now the timeline for this program is extremely long, but I will tell you, it's worth it. So we just submitted for August 5th, and the first start date is April 1st, I think is the start date we were using. So that's a long time. But I also have a startup, and I've been on the venture funding circuit for almost a year. and I'm no further along than I was before. So gosh, I could have had 3 SBIRs in by now. So why not, right? You're just killing time anyway. So it's a great way to sort of put a bun in the oven and see what happens.
Can we talk a little bit about, there are restrictions on the use of government funds in Phase 1 and Phase 2. What the money can be used for, and Rich, you kind of touched on it, the state has this matching program. And for those of you who are not aware, the state's matching program matches Phase 1 awards, I think it's 50 cents on the dollar, up to $50,000, okay. And there's a cap on how many times you can receive this funding from the state, but it's there really to make companies more competitive at the onset, make their proposal more competitive. It essentially gets the federal government's money to go a little bit further when they know the state is kicking in. But it's also there because there are restrictions on what the federal money can be used for, and the state money can bridge some of those gaps. So please talk about that, somebody. Rich or Kris?
Well, I mean, I come from a PR background, PR marketing background, which you, at least in the contracts that we've won, you can't do with a Phase 1. But you really might want to do that if you want to try to build demand for your product or do things to try to work toward and work ahead toward building an audience for your product.
No marketing, no legal, so no patent.
Management, paper management. 4 of our companies have, you're talking about the matching program. Because of the restrictions for the SBIR program, the matching actually helps kind of cover, or additional funds to cover some of the things that aren't allowed by the SBIR program. So legal cost, hiring, management, and marketing. Anything operational for the company is typically not covered by the SBIR. It's more research. Anything that you stated in the grant and any indirect costs are covered, but a lot of the operational business activities are not covered through the grant. So that's why the matching it kind of gives you that little boost, especially if you're an early startup company. It gives you an extra little cushion to kind of do some of the business activities. So it's a fantastic that it's brought back.
Yeah, I can concur with that. Just from the perspective of a company where our first and only funding was the SBIR, only being able to spend that money on research and development, really restricts us. So having the matching program available is hugely beneficial to us to be able to have a little extra money to spend on marketing, sales type of activities where we wouldn't be able to spend the SBIR money on that.
We had a question that just came in, and it was close to the topic we're going to discuss next. But the question here is, how do you know which agency to apply to in the first place? But maybe prior to that, how do you really know if this is the right decision for you and your company or your idea? And I think, Kris, you can talk about that a little bit, and there might be a piece of material out.
Yeah, Mike asked me to put together some sort of like decision tree handouts. So the first step is determining, is the program right for you? And there's a couple of key benchmarks we look for. So is there an inherent sense of risk in your project? Because this is supposed to be somewhat risky, but at the same time, do you have preliminary data that would lead the reviewers to believe that the project could be successfully completed? Are you a small business? First of all, you have to be a small business. Do you have a strong team? It has to be a strong team. It's not going to work if it's you in the garage. Let's see, I can't remember the other one on there. Anyway, so those are some of the benchmarks to look for to decide if it's right. Oh, can you do the 3 phases? Can your project meet the 3 phases? And the reason that the inherent sense of risk is important is because if you already have a product that's commercially available and you just want to add a new module or you just want to make a slight improvement, that is not an SBIR project. So that's where, because there's not very much risk involved, so there has to be that sense of risk. As far as the agency is concerned, or does anybody else want to talk on that? Okay. There's a couple ways to go about looking at the agency. First, deciding if you want to do a grant or a contract. Second, looking at if you have a timeline, because every agency has different solicitation dates. And then third, looking at the core competencies of your company, because it needs to be in line with that and consistent. So if you are doing something in engineering, then we look at all the agencies that offer something related to engineering, and there's a lot. If you're more in the medical, then we look at NIH or NSF or NASA or DOD. If you're working on driver safety, then we look at the Department of Transportation. So it just depends on what your technology is.
Something else to think about, we talked a little bit the other day, the requirements that are placed on a company receiving these funds, accounting principles, compliance, regulatory issues, what exists in that world?
We've had to invest in a really expensive software package just for accounting. I think for us, Deltek was north of $100,000 to deploy. That's just what we found that the government requires and how they want to talk to us financially. And then Kris mentioned having a team too. In phase one, you can only outsource 30%, I think it is, of the money for outside assistance. It goes up to 50% on phase twos. So you've got to be able to do this yourself. We're going to have teams that are under the banner of this company. And you don't have to, and then the principal investigator has to be employed 51%.
Those are both SBIR only conditions.
With SBIR only. It has to be employed 51% with this company. Now, you don't have to create the company unless you win, but there are sort of these little things you've got to, the keyhole is shaped in a certain way, and you're going to have to decide whether that's something that you can fit into and live with if you win.
We touched on this earlier, and someone just sent this card along. Explain a little bit more about the intellectual property concerns facing a small company and why a company should really, really, really call Barnes & Thornburg's intellectual property attorneys when going through this process. I don't know who put that question in.
Well, it's great that you can add to your portfolio with some of this IP, and we've got a couple spin-off companies related to that. But you also have to be careful sometimes, even with good counsel, that whenever you're trying to just license your idea to a bigger company, that somebody doesn't find a way around your patent. And we're a small company; we could go broke trying to defend it. I heard the Wright brothers went broke defending their patents against Glenn Curtis, and so we've had to get much more cautious about. On projects that we want to just license rather than take to a spin-off, create our own spin-off company. We've had to be very cautious about who we talk to about that.
Kris, have you dealt with companies having intellectual property issues?
I've never had a company that had an issue.
Okay.
I know they exist. I think they're more common in the contract world than the grant world because in the contract world, the end user is your contractor. They're your customer. So I think that I've never had a company that had an IP issue.
Sorry, we got a few questions that just came in.
Why don't I just quickly clarify the difference between SBIR and STTR, because we've talked about that a little bit.
Please.
SBIR is the larger program with 11 federal agencies. The smaller sister program or stepsister program is the STTR, which requires a research institution as a partner. And so in the university environment, we most often work in the STTR world. It allows the PI to reside at the research institution. Excuse me. It also allows a larger percentage of the budget and project effort to go to the research institution. But it is a smaller program, and not all agencies participate in it. And it does have some different guidelines than the SBIR.
In fact, I think it requires at least 30%.
It does.
Kind of
Yes.
opposite of the other, yeah.
And Polina, this ties into a question that I just received related to STTR specifically. What percentage, the question here is, what percentage equity stake does IU retain in these successful spin-up projects?
So the spin-up program is a program that we kind of took from University of Pennsylvania. So it's the model in itself. When we form these companies, the majority is owned by the founder, and then IURTC it's a 49-51 split. And so 49% is IURTC, and then 51% is the founder, is the faculty. And so that's the way our program is set up, spin up. There are other models that universities use that use similar ones, and depending on the program, it may be less or more. So that's how spin up is set up.
Thanks. Sorry.
I just want to comment. Sorry. Some people may think that's a lot, but for the initial formation of the company, the program itself provides a lot of the initial intern management and the SBIR program assistantship. And so just depending on how you look at it, it can be perceived as a lot, but ideally it's the initial services that we provide, I think, do a good job. And so depending on if you're an entrepreneur or not, you can see that as a benefit or, oh, it's a lot, but that's just the way it is. So.
Rich, can you talk a little bit about opportunities and challenges that exist in working with other companies in the program, either larger companies in some type of research partnership or smaller companies reaching out for the same sort of thing?
We're pretty vertically integrated and have not, don't subcontract out a lot of work with a lot of smaller companies unless it's a really, really specialized solution that we want to incorporate into one of our projects. But I sort of alluded to it earlier, our bigger challenges are related to working to commercialize with a larger company. We had a specific example where we developed a dishwashing system for Navy aircraft carriers. And every major carrier has several dishwashing stations where there are a lot of sailors scrubbing plates and, separating knives and forks. And so there was a topic, an SBIR topic from the Navy, again, very specific, right? And it said, design a dishwashing station that removes the role of 3 or 4 sailors per dishwashing station per carrier. So I think maybe there were 9 of these on a carrier and maybe 4 people per shift. And so they wanted to get the census for a carrier from 5,500 down to about 3,500 sailors. So we developed this solution, built a big prototype, and it worked great. Delivered that up to Massachusetts, and now we'd like to sell them, to the Navy. And the Navy had said, well, you don't have a manufacturing operation. You don't build these in your shop. And we've got 22,000 square feet, but we're not a big manufacturing facility. And he encouraged us to go partner with the major company that builds these things already for the Navy. And they're not really excited about working with us. They're making these things all day long, and I think they've got a good business going, and so far they haven't been very excited about it. And so that kind of, now we had to go to the second leading builder of dishwashers for the Navy. And, I think some of our technology here could get stale, could kind of be superseded at some point, and there's just not a real big incentive from these two companies to license what the Navy thought was a pretty good idea. And maybe someday, again, back to patents, we'll see something similar show up on their on their platforms, and we will have not gotten anything out of it. We had the same thing happen with a battery charging system with a major federal prime, Army prime as well. But with lighting, we kind of decided we didn't want to be in this position with a lighting solution. We developed an all-LED lighting system for military tents. So we contracted with Kirby Risk in Lafayette to build our lights for us. We were going to go into the business. We spun out a company on our own. And then eventually we built out part of that 22,000 square feet as a manufacturing operation. And now we are making our own LED lighting system and selling them. I think all the sleeping tents right now at Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan are lit by our LED lights. And so it's a tremendous product, but we've had to learn how to be manufacturers where we've really just been design folks for the last 20 years. So it's a challenging time for that.
There's a question in here about the competition for these awards. And Kris, you touched on the success rate earlier. But I'd be curious to know, and I think, Matt, you even said you went after a number of these before you kind of identified the right one. What is the competition, what's the landscape look like in terms of competing for these awards? And if SBIR, if you're not successful in that world, what are other options?
Well, again, I think the success rate for SBIR is much greater than outside venture capital, and you retain, I mean, nobody comes in and sits on your board. But it is an extremely competitive program, and it depends on the agency, and it depends on if you're looking at a larger agency, like the Department of Defense or NIH. It depends on which component in the Department of Defense, and it depends on which institute or center within NIH. So it's just being very strategic about who you apply to. It's all funding on any level, either VC, SBIR, grants, whatever, is all about relationships. And so this program still requires you to build relationships with real people on the other end of the phone or of a face-to-face meeting. So it does take time to build those relationships. I think Techshot's a good example of where they have a great relationship over time. They've developed it. You've become a trusted source for DoD, and that's really the end goal, but that takes time.
And then on another note on that, is not only is the relationship building, but when you're submitting the grants, to be competitive, it's a process, and there's a lot of intricacies involved. And so having a team effort, having someone write the grants and put the grant together and kind of guide the whole process of putting the whole package together is very critical to be competitive, to get it in on time, to really think about how you're going to go through phase 1 to phase 2. And our program, we do a lot of work together. And I think because of that, the team effort of divvying up the responsibilities really makes a strong candidate for the SBIR. So finding that, understanding who has what role in kind of crafting the grant would make you a little bit more competitive, and then understanding who else in the grant can make the grant a little bit stronger, different consultants, different advisors that you can have on the grant will also make you a little bit more competitive. And that just shows that you have been thinking about what the next stage of developing your company and the commercialization efforts that you're doing. Just thinking one step ahead, I think, always helps when submitting these type of grants.
Relationships, all about relationships. And yes, after 25 years, we've gotten to know our NASA customer pretty well, so our hit rate on phase 1s with NASA is probably a little bit better than 50% or so, and the conversion to phase 2 is like 98, 99%. But we will have maybe been working on that project or talking to that person, that technical contact for years, years and years about one thing. And there are whole blackout periods where you can't talk to the person. And that's different for agencies too, I think.
Contract versus grant.
Is that, again, contract versus grant. But, if a topic comes out, it's almost, I'm not saying it's too late, but, you really need to be shelling the beachhead, getting in ahead before topics come out. And sometimes topics come out again and again, or they didn't get a solution that they really liked. So you'll see it come out again. Or the topic didn't come out this year, but if you look back through the record, it came out years ago. And sometimes those are still around. You can still propose to those. You can go in and meet with somebody, and you hate to have things wired for somebody unless it's you, right? So you want to go in, and if you can have a relationship, and then a topic comes out just written for you, that's really the best of all. That's right. That's right.
Right. I think particularly for those types of solicitations where they're asking for something very specific, you really want it written to you. Whereas the other sort of more broader topics, you can come up with what you're planning. But one thing that Rich brought up was the blackout period. But there's also, during the solicitation phase, there's a period where you are actually able to send email, communicate with the program manager, and basically ask the program manager, here's what I'm thinking does this fit the solicitation? Does this fit what you're looking for? Should we maybe put this in a different way. And I think that's very important. So it's very important to start early, plan early, and to communicate with the program manager early to understand the perspective of the program manager.
And that's true for both grants and contracts. There's a great example at Purdue. We're working with a client that was developing a new pediatric drug formulation something. And I'm not a science person either. And he reached out to the program manager at NIH and he said, hey, here's what we're working on. We're using this drug. And they said, absolutely not. We're interested in your approach, but we don't care about that drug. Use this drug. Or they provided a list of drugs that they were interested in. And so the client was able to change the drug that they were using, which was more attractive to NIH. And so again, you learn that information by communicating and building relationships.
We are getting close to the end of the time here, and sticking with true talk show format, I'm not leaving until one of you cries. So let's spend the last few minutes, could have asked a bad question. Talk a little bit about just something we haven't touched on today, something about the program that maybe we didn't get to, but really if for a company in the room or someone in the room who's interested in this, what's the next step look like as well? Where should they go to figure out how they can get involved in something like this?
I'm probably a little biased since I'm a consultant that does this for a living.
Yeah, right?
Call me. For reals.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea because there's so many nuances, and even within SBIR contracts or even within SBIR grants, agencies have their own nuances on it, and it's very hard to navigate. It's a very steep learning curve, and I think engaging someone like Kris would be a perfect first step.
The other thing there's so many different agencies, and each one has its own deadlines, its own timeline. DOD is so large that they come out with multiple solicitations throughout the year. So you really need to keep up on all these deadlines and know when the next topics are coming out. So again, you can immediately start looking to see if you're a fit for one of these topics and to apply to them. And there are some resources out there on the web that sort of put out newsletters that help you to know the deadlines and know they're approaching and just keep on top of things.
And then I know that with the match program back, I think not only do they provide funds, but they provide technical assistantship through the state. I can't recall the name of the program, but I know that now there's something available for interested small businesses that want to go after small business grants. There is a state-funded technical assistantship center that kind of have paired with Elevate Ventures and the IEDC to provide. It's a free resource just to give a general overview and assistantship that I think is now available by the state.
Probably talk on that really quickly. Yeah, the folks you need to talk to are actually in the room. We have Shane Springer and Jacob Spock. But in a nutshell, the state has two components to helping companies in this world. There is technical assistance, free technical assistance. So that is, I want to go after one of these SBIR opportunities, but I don't know how. The Indiana Procurement Technical Assistance Center has counselors that can help you through that process. They can also do a proposal review if you want to go at it alone. And then the second component of the program is through Elevate Ventures, and as we mentioned earlier, that's a match for all successful Phase 1 awards. So for more information on that program in particular, this is run through the Indiana Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which is part of the Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship, which is part of the Indiana Small Business Development Center, which reports to the Lieutenant Governor's family of businesses. Got it? Okay. That's all.
I'm sorry, Ryan, real quick, for real, two good resources are the website that you mentioned is zyn.com. You can sign up to get notification of releases and his newsletter, which is awesome. And then the second thing I'd recommend is going to an SBIR conference. There are 2 a year. The spring one is always in Washington, D.C. at the beginning of June or end of May. and then the second one somewhere around the country. Program managers are there. You can talk to them, and you can learn everything about the program in a jam-packed 3-day session.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, panelists. Please help me thank them. I want to thank Ryan not only for helping us steer the conversation, but also because he was a pivotal part in making the case to reinstate this state support for the program as well, as I know Jacob Spock, our fearless leader of OSBI, back there was as well. So please help me thank them as well. Okay, we'll be back here the first Friday of next month again. So we would welcome you to join us again. Also, we have coming up, what is it, Annie? Remind me, September 24th, Entrepreneur Boot Camp coming up, and this has more of a entrepreneur personal finance twist to it. Peter Dunn, many of you know Pete the Planner. Some of you may know, what is it, Ellen Ollie? His daughter and son have their own online personalities as well, which are pretty hilarious. He is going to be joining us to talk specifically about how to kind of walk that line between being an entrepreneur and helping to sustain a healthier business while also helping to keep your own personal finances afloat. So we'll welcome you for that as well. Have a great weekend.